The following content is provided under a Creative Commons license. Your support will help MIT OpenCourseware continue to offer high-quality educational resources for free. To make a donation or to view additional materials from hundreds of MIT courses, visit MIT OpenCourseware at ocw.mit.edu.
Okay, so this is the second part of the class, and this is the last part of the semester. So I think we've traveled a lot. You know, we've investigated too many difficult issues, I think. And I want to give you credit actually for throughout the semester for being so open, honest, and being able to engage into difficult issues. And each time that you guys are presenting, you might have remembered me nagging you to get deeper into personal issues and not just be abstract. And the reason is because I think you make a much better case, whatever you want to argue, if you can bring your own biography into it. And I think overall I think it worked. In fact, I myself, learned so much throughout the semester from listening to some of your own personal discoveries about yourself, about issues of race, language, gender, sexuality. And I give you lots of credit for that because it's risky. And because before you came here, you didn't know each other, most of you, right? And yet to be able to open yourself to these difficult questions and to give answers that were so thoughtful and so many of them actually, I didn't expect some of you to actually, literally come out in this class in a way, right? So I thought that was very brave of you, so I give you my respect for that. So that now before we end, Sarah, since you're here, so let's go around the room and maybe if there are things that you feel you want to take with you to the next step, so that you feel that others who come after you in this class might benefit from anything that you want to share in terms of your learning experience in this class and how you think you can bridge those gaps that we've seen in terms of our society, our families. So I wasn't here last Thursday, but I watched the video of the whole class, and there too I was actually very impressed by how you guys brought up personal issues, and so but there's a lot there to work on. So you have to make some for this class, for this last 40 minutes or so. You have to pick something to bring out. So what would it be? You want to take a pass? You can go to Edna. Yeah.
So, I'm not sure if I fully understand what I'm supposed to say, but I'm going to say what I was thinking. So for me personally, throughout this class, I think I realized I explored myself and my identity way more. And I think I was forced to ask questions about myself that I hadn't. And for me, the main thing I realized is how uncomfortable I am with being multiracial. I enjoy being multiracial, but I didn't realize that there's parts of me that don't necessarily fit together. And how I don't really see myself as one certain race or whatever. And I think, the things that helped with that were our personal essays and definitely the free writing assignment that one of the guest professors had us do. That got pretty deep. And I was kind of oh crap, I have to write at 9:30 in the morning when she first said that. But then I really enjoyed it as it went on. And I think maybe bringing out more multiracial topics next year would be beneficial to people like me who didn't even know that was a problem within themselves. And I think also a really interesting topic that we went over was I think what do we call it, faking? Oh no, passing, and how that's a privilege and talking about all the controversial issues on that. And I don't think I really also thought about that before this class. So that was something I benefited from.
So you said faking instead of passing.
Yeah.
And that reminded me of a comment that Cynthia made back then, right? That often when we think of passing, we think of it as something which is negative. But I think Cynthia made that point, which I remember very well, that was very important, that the notion of passing should not be viewed from that perspective. And there's a way that one can think of passing as a normal survival strategy in a way. So maybe that's a nice segue into Cynthia, but you don't have to talk about that, but you can.
Can I actually have another moment?
Say it again?
Nothing? Can I have another moment?
Sure, of course. You can go to Brooke and then come back.
So I guess it's sort of hard. I think it sort of takes a lot of reflecting to
Yeah.
sort of think about like all that we've discussed. But just on sort of a quick note, one of the things that this class has sort of solidified for me is the importance of conversations. And so I think most of the learning that I've done in this class and other sort of seminar-based classes sort of pales in comparison, or what I learned in my technical courses pales in comparison to the things that I learned in classes like this. Because at the end of the day, I think most of the learning comes from those around you, your classmates, the set of experiences that they have, more so than what you learn in these technical classes. There's a saying that says like 5 years after you graduate, you won't remember 90% or whatever what you learned in college. But I think what you do remember is sort of these sort of conversations that boil down to personal experiences. And so I think, again, there is challenge in this world of sort of approaching people who aren't really willing to have these conversations. But sort of changing yourself is the first step. And I think if everyone sort of makes this, or has this realization, takes a step towards making this change, it's very idealistic, but I think the world would be a better place. And so I think that's probably one thing that I've gotten from this class.
Oh man. Bouncing off of what Brooke said, I think one way in which I would like to see this class grow is the integration of having some sort of conversation, like open discussion instead of debate, with someone who does not come from a similar ideological background as most people in this class, to try to sort of gain practice in having discussions with someone who's a lot different from you, and developing a common trust and coming to see each other's viewpoints in a way that would be more informative than what one could do among a set of like-minded individuals.
Let's see. So one thing that I enjoyed about this class, I can distinctly remember one class that literally blew my mind. I think I turned to somebody and was like, oh my gosh. And that was when we interrogated what MIT was as an institution and where we sit in this field, in this hierarchy of social, in the social hierarchy in the US. And I think when coming to MIT, I was willing to give the institution a free pass a lot because I felt that I was getting a lot from the experience. But I think now that I'm a senior, and all the seniors here are last day of classes, you guys. Now that I'm at this point where I can think back on what MIT has done for me and how it functions, I think I'm better poised to think more critically about the institutions I choose to join in the future for postgraduate education and after.
So I took this class as a challenge to myself because at the beginning I knew about the prejudices and stereotypes that I had been taught, and I wanted to get rid of them. And I think this class has helped a lot with that, just by hearing everyone else's perspectives from the readings, from looking at the world by taking a step back and looking at things as they are and not how we were specifically taught that they are. And I really appreciate that. I want to from here on, I want to move forward and try to figure out how to be an ally from an Asian American perspective, because a lot of the times Asian American families try to be the status quo. My parents have always taught me to try to be, not explicitly but implicitly, try to be as white as you can. And I think that was a really difficult lesson to go through, and then come to a place like MIT, which is so diverse and which has so many different backgrounds, and to come in thinking there's a hierarchy where there isn't, and now going forward trying to break that down.
Related to what you said, actually, is this concept of being multiracial and interrogating that for yourself. but also within a context of being in a society of multiple races, and understanding the spaces that exist for meaningful conversations across cultural and ethnic and other, sometimes just socially constructed boundaries that don't necessarily need to be boundaries. And I remember in one conversation, Cynthia actually really challenged, this idea of forming alliances, especially between historically, systematically oppressed groups. And in a class like Black Matters, I think that we actually think about people who don't identify as Black and who may not be read as Black in society, and we've engaged critically with the issues that they face as well. When we talked about immigration from Mexico and, the times where I insist upon interjecting indigenous North American issues into the conversation, but there seems to be space for all of that. And so what I want to take away from all of these discussions is how can we create meaningful alliances and be allies, and how can we collaborate between groups who are distinct and different and face similar challenges in this society, but also have really specific perspectives and experiences and future goals. So the idea of collaborations, especially among historically oppressed groups, is one that I want to continue thinking about outside of this class.
A lot of what I was thinking about during this class, for me personally, was comparing and contrasting, because I come from I'm from Zimbabwe, so there's not a lot of diversity, and this was an entirely new experience to me. So a lot of what I was doing was comparing my past, my history, my experiences with you guys' experiences and everything around me, and thinking about, for instance, in the readings, how they analyze different situations, the situation in America, the situation in Haiti, and thinking about where these things are connected, how they're different, what could have been done, what should be done. And I think I really thought about issues like this before this class, and now I'm starting to think about it more, especially in education. I'm really interested in education and how we can help teach people in the future how to use their skills that they learn, how to think about certain things, how to approach certain problems in a way that challenges them and also challenges the status quo and challenges the hierarchies that are set up. So personally, I think that this class definitely helped me think a lot more, and I hope that in future it'll help a lot more people think about their actions, think about what they're saying, think about what they're doing, and think about how they can help and how they can engage their communities. For instance, I remember when we were talking about how we came to MIT, we might graduate, and then what are you going to do when we go back to the communities where we come from? How do we plan to affect those communities? Do we go back as experts, or do we go back as one of them? Do we try to fit in? Like, questions like that are definitely things that we should think about, and I think are very important.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was learning about what we were learning, but then thinking back to how I grew up in a really white area, and I was always taught there's one correct way to speak, there is one correct way to teach kids, and thinking back now with all this information on how damaging that really is, and how it's not really about the language, and it's not really about how we speak, it's more about marginalizing groups that might speak that way. And it's just thinking about how my entire school system was based on what they thought was correct and what was telling us what we should think is correct. And I think coming out of this, hopefully we can try to change some of that in the school systems, because it can really affect how kids view the world as they grow up.
I think one thing I gained from this class is kind of, verification of the idea that listening is very important, and it's kind of various ways you could think about it, just in the context of this class, whether it's listening to other people share their experiences and kind of really taking it in and understanding how they fit in within whatever social hierarchy or whatever kind of issue we're discussing, and seeing how it's kind of played a role in their lives, and kind of seeing how you could apply it to either better someone else's life, like improve your own kind of interaction with the world in some way, or whether it's listening in terms of like language. We've talked a lot about language and like kind of how certain modes of speaking are somewhat marginalized. So ensuring that like as you go forward, you like really listen to people regardless of how they present their ideas or present their thoughts, or whether it's like listening as far as like engaging people who have opposing opinions as you, like really understanding that in order to strengthen your own positions and really understand why it is that you think the way it is, you have to be able to listen to people who kind of think in a different way than you. So yeah, I've just seen a lot of kind of different things in this class that speaks to the importance of listening.
I think what this class has made me call into question a lot is my lack of analysis of my racial background. Because I'm Japanese American, it's not really something that I'm forced to address all the time, because no one's really calling that much attention to it, because neither one of those groups is really that attacked in modern society as for being a racial group. And something I didn't really even think about is my mom is an immigrant. I didn't really address that ever because no one was calling into question her immigration here. And that also leads to a lot of relating to how the opinions of other people, and especially my very conservative extended family, and how their opinions about certain things such as immigration are reliant on people being of certain races and being from certain places, because it just isn't something that they've ever seen negatively about my family, but it is something that's a core part of why my family exists. So I think things like that, having people address their own identities and their own backgrounds and how that's affected how they see everything else in their interactions with other people, I think is a really great part of this course.
I'm having trouble with distilling everything down, but I guess one big takeaway from this class was that accepting that there's no one right way to exist as a human across gender, sexuality, race, and class, and things like that. And that was a realization that I think I came to in this class. And it all goes back to the importance of interrogating your beliefs and why you think the ways that you do. And it's really eye-opening, and I think it's really important, but you have to open yourself up to that. And it takes a certain level of vulnerability. I wasn't expecting to come out in this class at all. But I did, because this was a place where I felt safe, and it was really surprising that I felt so safe in this environment. And I think that's something that we need to recreate elsewhere. Another thing that I would like to take for this class in the future is there are people who aren't seniors taking this class. So what do you do now? What classes do you take next, or what actions can you take because of what you've learned in this class? And I think something that maybe that can happen in this class is thinking about concrete ways to actually do stuff. Because we had Professor Chomsky in here on Tuesday, and he said almost anything is the answer to what do we do. So maybe having some sort of initiative coming out of this class is to make change, maybe just at MIT or just in Boston or in the world at large.
So kind of piggybacking off of what Chris said, I think the most meaningful conversations and talks that we've had for me were when we talked to professors, people all over Cambridge who were using their own backgrounds, their own fields of study, and they're making tangible changes, as Chris was saying. So, for example, when we watched the virtual reality kind of simulation in terms of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and I feel those conversations and the fact that I have the privilege of taking this class in my last semester has really kind of driven me to really to take action outside of MIT and hopefully in the future back at MIT, and to really take that with me in my specific field, so medicine, and how these various identities can really affect people's kind of healthcare and that's life or death. And so I feel like that has really been eye-opening for me, and that's kind of driven me to action.
Yeah, I think for me, from this class, it's made me more aware of how many things I don't. For example, I didn't know about the Haitian Revolution when it occurred, and I didn't really question it during the time. But it's all the things that we aren't taught, just because a lot of the history that we learn is taught from like a very like westernized perspective. So I feel like it's very important that this class teaches us that there's always many ways to view certain things, and there's certain many things that aren't necessarily taught just because I guess society just doesn't want us to know about these things, so that we could learn from this.
I think similar to what Herman was saying, I think this class has really brought up the idea of taking action. And a lot of our readings, like passivity was just like there all the time. Like people, I remember in Anita Sereno, where the captain was just like, oh, that's really strange, but I guess that's just the way things are. So he was like, he noticed that things were wrong, but he didn't do anything. So I think just trying to take action, and many of you mentioned like interrogating yourself is an important way to do it. And I really liked the first assignment, which was a linguistic autobiography, and I felt that just thinking of my whole life in terms of the languages I grew up reading, writing, and how they were presented to me was a really good way just to look into my own self. What I think would be better in future versions of this class would be maybe talking together in smaller groups in order to, I guess I think it's easier just to talk about yourself in that way. For some people are more comfortable. I think the only time we got to do that was last Tuesday when we had Professor Alan here, and we worked in like groups of 3, and that was pretty cool.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think, so what Sarah just said also, hearing what Herman said, and also what Chris said, we can try together, because this class, I hope, will be offered many times again here, as a time live, I hope. And actually, we're thinking of next year, I might do it with Fox Harrow. So, from that perspective, maybe you guys could share with me what you think could be done to implement what you guys said in terms of taking this knowledge and into action. Because throughout the semester I was struggling with what kind of projects do I assign, because I often felt that it would be so nice to do a project that puts you guys in the world, not just writing an essay, and I try to see whether something could come up spontaneously from you that you could own and say, well, I want to do this. So how would you advise me in the next cycle of this course to make that happen? To do projects maybe throughout the semester, or maybe later on, or optional projects that would really turn knowledge into action. Okay, so it is that and then that.
So maybe some things like, I still think you should have the essays, because at least for me, they were pretty beneficial in exploring myself.
Yeah.
But maybe instead of having like the essay revision, although I think like revising your essays is important, I think that could be done throughout your essay process instead. And maybe like putting in a project where you have to create like a policy or like a lesson plan or like something like that, and then present that. And maybe even have a plan of action of who you would go to talk to about this. Because I think like if you just come up with a plan, it can be pretty like, philosophical or just an idea and we'll never be done with it. But like, what would be your next step? Now you have an idea, how do you implement it? And then also something I forgot to mention before, but I thought was really useful about this class was when we went to go to the movies all together on a Saturday. And at first I was like, oh crap, now I have to like a lot of time, but I actually really enjoyed that and was hoping the conversation would keep going.
Okay.
So maybe having more things outside the class.
Okay.
Because I think it's really hard to explore all the things that you would want to do in an hour and a half.
Right.
So like maybe having somewhere like, I don't know what types of places you can go to, but maybe going to an industry school in Boston together and like seeing how it's taught there and what you would change.
Okay, that's good to hear actually, because one thing that I'm toying with Fox, with Harold, is to see whether we could change the format instead of having an hour and a half to have once a week for 3 hours. And in the past, I tried that, but because of the schedule at MIT, it's been hard for students to enroll for a 3-hour class when they graduate. So we stepped away from that. But now we're thinking of whether we should do that, and then maybe in 3 hours we could go someplace else.
Yeah, I think that might be beneficial. I know like negotiation at Sloan does it at like Thursday at like 5 or something like that. So it's hard to schedule like a 3-hour class during the day, but if you do it as a night section.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you for saying that actually. So I'll report back to Fox and then we can see what. So there was Dina, and then Sarah, and then Chucky.
Well, it's related directly to what she just said about the time.
Okay.
It's just like a short thing that having a class at 5 would be difficult because there's a lot, like, no athletes can participate. Yeah, because they practice from 5 to 7.
I see, okay.
Yeah, there's another section at 7, I'm pretty sure. So.
Most of the classes are from 7 to 10.
7 to 10,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were talking, Alina was talking about projects, and I think that could definitely work in this course. I think one thing that I've really wanted is to be able to affect change within the context of this course and sort of have a reason to do so. Based on the readings, I would like to go into school and say, let me try my hand at teaching kids in this way and see if it actually works. So if you wanted to organize that sort of thing, it could be cool to also work in small groups and maybe diversify. We have a ton of different courses in here. But I think there's a lot to be gained by going out into the real world. And I think, this is just me agreeing, but I think a 3-hour course would be a good decision.
Okay. Sarah?
So I think just an idea stems from what Colin said about talking to someone with a different ideological perspective than yourself. So maybe like having students go in like groups of 2 partners out into the world and like maybe interview someone or like share some of the information you learned. Like the Haitian Revolution happened. It was like one of the most revolutionary revolutions. Like, did you ever learn why? Why do you think it did? Something along those lines.
Okay. So going back to Dina's point, so in terms of going to the schools, I have some good news, which is that I think I shared an article with you about this new program that's being launched in the Boston Public School, the Digital English program. And Vivian Tam, actually, she's ethnically Chinese, and she had launched a English program, Chinese English, in Cambridge, which is doing relatively well from what I hear. And then she's also responsible for launching this Asian Creole English to English program. And she's offered that if there are students in this class or in other classes that I teach at MIT, if they want to come and volunteer and take advantage of that new program in terms of doing any research that's socially based or empirically based or even having to do with measuring students' learning gains, she would be happy to work with you. There is one student in my other class, Jose Esparza, who's gone there now twice and was going to be going on a weekly basis to the meetings to try to understand how they're creating this new program where there'll be, I think, half kids who speak Creole and half who don't speak Creole, and it's going to be truly bilingual. So you get American or other ethnicities learning Asian Creole, and you get the Asian Creole kids being included also learning English and being taught in English. So I think it's a really, I think, very radical move for the Boston Public School. They've had other programs of that sort, but never one involving a non-imperial language. Typically it's Spanish English, French English, Chinese English, but it's the first time that they're doing one that includes a language like Asian Creole that's been over the years, as you know, stigmatized in various ways. So we're excited. There's been some pushback, including pushback from Haitian parents. Some of them would prefer to have it in French, as you can imagine, right? Although they don't speak French, but it's a typical neo-colonial desire for assimilation into a superior language, so to speak. But I think there's been some good progress in that front. In fact, Noam Chomsky, who was here Tuesday, he had an interview, which I put on my Facebook page. If I should send it to you, where it was me, him, and the assistant superintendent of the political system. Her name is Parsa as well. It's from Mexico, but she grew up in California. And it was a very interesting exchange between the two of us, where James was talking about the importance of promoting these local languages for really for liberation of the spirits of the mind. So I think that those are good suggestions. Those are very, very good suggestions. And since Harold he has this strong background in computation, and as you saw doing projects involving virtual reality, that might be another part where you can do action in the course.
With just based on what you said, like with Fox Harold and the computation part, I thought it was really interesting, like learning about what he's doing. But I think if there was like I don't know if this is where you were going, but like if I think there was more of a requirement to do more computation-based things, I probably would have strayed away from this class.
Okay.
Because so I'm not like the stereotypical major here. Like I'm a business major,
Right.
but I think I would have been like slightly intimidated if there was like a CMS type project in here.
I see.
So
Okay.
maybe like making that one of the facets of what you can
I
do,
see.
but not
Okay.
a requirement.
Okay, that's good. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to hear. Thank you.
I think also taking advantage of the learning styles of the students in the class could be interesting. So maybe doing more creative projects or doing projects that people feel like allow them to use their best skills and actually have fun. I feel like.
So tell me, Cynthia, so if you could have done a project that was creative, what would you have done? Just to get a sense of what you could think of in the future.
Just off the fly, I maybe would have made like a 10-foot tall paper mache person and written like, I don't know, stuff all over it and then put it in lobby 10.
Okay.
Like negative comments or
Not
like
anything, just like stuff that.
That's interesting. That's okay. And then they would have to have a part that includes communication of some sort. So how would you do that? So you would do that and perhaps have a paper describing why you did it, the mission of what you've done, and the objective that you're trying to accomplish.
I mean, if it was just like a black body or like a brown body of some sort, I would even just leave markers and stuff for other people to put messaging on it. I feel like would be like giving. I think art is a great way to give people an entry into having those conversations.
That's
and like
great.
it would be an artifact.
Excellent, excellent. In fact, I'm so glad this is being recorded, so that we have this, really, because that way we have this. I can watch it with Fox, Harold, and then we can play around with this idea. This is great. So, actually, anyone has concrete suggestions like that, so that all of you.
So a class I one of those, maybe you've taken it, psychology, gender, and race? No, okay. It's not by a psychologist who works in the local area. Maybe her first name should be, I forget her last name. But the part of the class is like training, or like doing mock training on how to present cultural awareness presentations, where you go with, you basically form a group of students and kind of teach the other students who are role playing either like college frat, members of a college frat, or like 6th graders inside of local Boston public school about like different, about how some things that they may be doing could be disparaging to minority groups. And it could be interesting having a conversation with her to see like what things she incorporates into those presentations and if that would be useful inside of Black Matters.
Okay, that would be useful. It would be very useful. Dina.
No, I was pointing out.
Oh, okay.
Oh. So, with the wiki, that I think was the new thing this semester. I think like just another way for us to communicate, like as students, would be great, because just like maybe someone said something in class that was really interesting, and you like only have their email.
Right.
Like it's like hard to like get in contact. So maybe another like an opt-in way to have like.
So the wiki didn't really work, huh?
No.
Why did the wiki work?
It's hard to.
It's not a good platform.
It's
The wiki is not a good platform. OpenCourseware, do you hear? The wiki is not a good platform. I heard that as well in my other class. The students said, we don't like the wiki. So this,
I never.
It's not user friendly.
Yeah,
what
it's
about like
really
a Slack channel or something like where you can be more communicative, but also like
Group
post
me,
it?
Slack.
Or GroupMe or like a Facebook, like something that we already all use and wouldn't have to go out of our way to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your hand raised? Is there also a hand raised over here?
Yeah.
Was it Shopee? What's your hand raised? No, okay, so Hamlin, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So you were asking what kind of projects, right?
Mhm.
So from like the teaching perspective, I think after the classes last week, learning about open and fixed mindset, something that would have been interesting as a project would be to create a curriculum, like just a lecture or a workshop for an age group, whatever age. It could be college, it could be lower, and kind of trying to implement the like teaching techniques that we learn to foster a more open mindset. That would have been a cool like project to explore.
Okay, great. Okay, so Fanny, Dana, and Elena.
Wait, mine is off of that.
So you go first.
Okay. I think that would be a good idea. Also, we could still enlist the help of the professor who gave these lectures, because I think that will give us a little more, when we actually go into these schools and say, we'd like to bring this plan to you because we have professor backing, we have this whole slew of research behind us.
Another cool thing that you could do about like community outreach is, I know one time a couple weeks ago in Amphibious Achievement we had a bunch of people from Chocolate City come in, and also there's a group, it's like something Latinas, and I don't know what the first part is. Yes.
Yeah.
And so they came in, and Chocolate City came in, and
So you have to give some background about Chocolate City, Amphibious Achievement, and make it self-contained.
Right.
That's
Sorry.
why people might not know what you're referring to.
So Amphibious Achievement it's a program at MIT, and we work with Boston public high schoolers, and it's like an academic mentorship program, but also we just like work with them to try to build their confidence, and we also help them apply to college and things like that. And then Chocolate City is like just like it's a living group here on campus, and it's like African American men, and then wait, say it again.
Mujeres Latinas.
That's a group of like Latina women, and so they came in to talk to the high schoolers in Amphibious Achievement, and we just had like a discussion about how they feel about what they've been told they can and cannot do because of like who they are. And it was really, really interesting for everybody. And I think that would be something cool to do. Like,
do you have a Facebook page?
We do.
Okay.
It's called Amphibious Achievement.
Okay. All right, it's very definitely. Thank you. Thank you. So actually, so would Facebook be a better way to communicate instead of the way?
Way better.
Way better. So maybe next year then we should create a Facebook page for the course.
Yeah.
A page for the course, and then a messaging group for the students.
Okay.
Interface does it.
Okay, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. All right. Actually, maybe one of you could create a Facebook page for this group, and that way you guys can keep in touch. And if there are ways that, given what Franny just explained, if there are ways to do other projects that might bring your strengths and your knowledge together to make actual change, that may be something to think about. But you'd have to be responsible for it.
Bouncing off your idea, I think it'd be really interesting to like maybe potentially have one project option to be like a emancipatory literacy like class presentation or something like that, where you like take a certain section of literature, maybe just one book like Madame Bovary, and dissect the ways in which the society in which it is embedded create the themes within it. Like a major thing inside of Madame Bovary is like it's centered on this one woman who's like married in the countryside of France back in like the 19 or 1800s, and she gets really depressed because she has nothing to do, and just explaining that like she has no options for employment and is stuck at home because that's what was expected of women back in that day, and like dissecting both that cultural phenomenon and then examining how that may play out in like today's terms with different patterns in society.
Okay, good. So it's 10:55, so we'll give Elena the last word.
Oh, jeez. Wow, okay. So something that I was thinking about was what you had said, Sin, about having like that art project. And I realized I'm not artistic at all, so I was trying to figure out what I would do if there was an art assignment, and I was thinking about something I'd seen in a show where like you put yourself up, like you stand up there, and then you have like a projector screen, and you write words on it of what you don't like about yourself. And that could be like, instead of like what we don't like about ourselves, like things we've been told about ourselves based off our race or based off our gender or sexuality, then also having things you would rather have been said. Because what I really liked about this class was the self-exploration.
Good,
So.
good. All right, guys, so thank you so much. And